Hi, welcome to SBRForum Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. Right now we are doing a preview of UFC 171, the main card, with, once again, our returning guest, our regular guest, Nick Kalikas from MMA oddsmaker.com. He is an authority on MMA odds making, consultant for numerous sports books. And our other guest today, our call-in guest, is going to be Nate Miller. He's also with MMA oddsbreaker.com, and he does a podcast called the MMA Analysis Podcast. All right, so Nate Miller, quickly introduce yourself before you're a first-time guest on these calls, and tell us a little bit about what the MMA Analysis Podcast is all about.
Well, it's a little bit of a different format. It's just kind of for the hardcore MMA gamblers that are really dedicated to the sport, and we like to have fun is the nicest way I could say it. But yeah, it's a little out of hand at times, but very enjoyable for the listeners. So if you haven't heard it yet, go check it out. I think you guys will like it.
Out of hand. That sounds very intriguing. I think I might check it out myself. All right, guys, let's start right in. Robbie Lawler and Johny Hendricks, right? It's going to be an interesting fight. Two huge left-handers, right? It's going to be a lefty versus lefty bloodbath. As far as the odds are concerned, Johny Hendricks minus 460, Lawler plus 365 on the other side. Those are the current odds that I'm seeing at 5 dimes. And, obviously Hendricks should be a huge favorite here, or a significant favorite here. Should he be quite that big of a favorite? I don't know. I mean, he's facing, a big puncher, maybe the best puncher he's ever faced in Lawler, facing a lefty. Hendricks has never been knocked out or even knocked down, but if anyone can do it, it might be Lawler. Of course, Lawler, an amazing story, a big comeback from him. Plus 365, is that a little bit high? Nick Kalikas, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so, considering I opened the line around minus 290 or so. So just under 3-1. I think the line is getting kind of wacky. No respect at all to Robbie Lawler. But it's not too surprising because, he hasn't been respected from the betting public on his last few fights, and he's come through. So not really that shocking. But as the line escalates, man, it's mind-boggling kind of, because this fight's going to be competitive. Either guy could definitely knock each other out. They have the power to do so. So I give a slight edge to Hendricks, but I agree totally. The line's out of whack.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I mean, Nate Miller, what's your take on this fight? Obviously, Hendricks should be the favorite here, right? But at these current odds, would you say that Lawler has value?
That's obviously where the value is. This isn't where I'd put it, but obviously we all knew the money would go on Hendricks. Everybody's going to throw the money on Hendricks, so it's not that surprising. And just like Nick said, Robbie's been a constant underdog in the UFC. I mean, besides the Bobby Volker fight, it's really been don't call it a comeback. And since coming back to the UFC, returning to welterweight, he just looks amazing. And I don't know. This is a tough fight to call. Obviously, Hendricks knocks out people early or grinds out the decision. So this will be either a really interesting first round, or it might be a really long, drawn-out decision. I think obviously the wrestling advantage goes to Hendricks. He'll probably be able to edge out Lawler there, but not any confident money from me on this fight.
All right, but if you had to make a bet at the current odds, Hendricks at minus 460 or Lawler at plus 365, who would you take?
Well, if I absolutely had to make a play, I wasn't going to play it. But if I had to look anywhere, under 3.5 at negative 135, that's where that's sitting right now. That's not bad. Like I said, Lawler, he's very dangerous in the first round, and after that, he seems to cruise with his wrestling. So,
if Lawler does win, how do you think is the most likely way that it'll happen?
Well, I don't think it'll be a decision. He's not going to control the wrestling. Obviously, he's an accomplished wrestler up to a point, but definitely not on Hendricks' level, not even close. The first round is going to be the risk. I think both guys will come out swinging. I think Lawler could land something. Obviously, like we've already mentioned, Lawler's he upsets people. Like Josh Koscheck, that came out of nowhere. Rory McDonald, nobody saw that fight ending the way it did or going to the decision. But it's you got to go with Johny Hendricks here. I'm just not confident enough to throw money either way, specifically on this fight.
All right, so Nick Kalikas, not a surprise then that all the money, early money, came in on Hendricks, right?
Not too much of a surprise, but like I said, I think overall it's kind of wacky. There's definitely value in Robbie Lawler at this point because I do think Hendricks has the obvious wrestling advantage. He can get the fight to the floor. He could probably grind the fight out a little bit more, but he's never faced a striker like he's going to face with Robbie Lawler. I mean, the interesting fact, again, is both of them have tremendous knockout power, so either one of these guys could clip each other. But I would not recommend laying the juice against somebody like Robbie Lawler, just asking for it. I mean, he can end things with, man, even if he just barely grazes you at times, that's how powerful the guy is. I mean, he clips you a little bit, dazes you, then he just has that killer instinct to pounce. So I do see value in Robbie Lawler. I mean, just a straight bet, period. I think this fight should be closer. Realistically, the odds should be closer to 2-1, 2.5-1 or so, I think. But again, you got to gauge the public hype in. Johny Hendricks, just even if people are arguing it was a controversial decision, but he did, in my opinion, beat the man in George St. Pierre. It was a competitive fight, but he did more to win that fight. So he's the uncrowned champion right now. So I could see the advantages again. with Hendricks. But man, as far as betting goes, no value in betting the favorite here in this spot.
All right, so you think that if Lawler wins, it's not going to be because it goes a distance and he wins on the cards? I mean, if you were going to bet Lawler, would you take him on some kind of, either a first-round win or an inside the distance?
Well, Nate made an interesting point. He said that Robbie Lawler slows down after round one, but Hendricks does as well. To me, I was impressed with Hendricks in this fight against GSP because he proved that he definitely worked on his cardio and he was able to go 5 strong. I kind of questioned that at that spot before that. But that being said, I know he has put the work in. I think this is going to be kind of a different type of fight. I think it's going to actually remain on the feet a lot more than people think, because I think after round one, Hendricks is going to struggle. He's going to get a little bit more tired, and he's not going to be able to take Robbie down as much. So as these guys fade, I mean, even in round 3, say it gets that far, round 4, somebody's got enough knockout power to end it. I don't expect it to hit the cards because I think both of them fade enough that eventually somebody's going to get clipped and get put out. That's how I think it's going to play out.
Well, my thoughts right now, and I'd like each of you to comment on that. I'm thinking that, if I had to make a bet on the side, it would be Lawler at plus 365, but I'm thinking now maybe the best way to bet this fight might just be under 3.5, which is right now a minus 135 at 5 dimes. What do you think, Nate Miller?
Like I said earlier, my only problem with that is that what we have seen in the past, and he's only been in 1 or 2 5-round fights now, but if he doesn't knock you out right away, he tends to cruise the next 4 rounds. Not cruise, but he's not as vicious as he is. I see risk in the under, but if I had to go for value, that is the play I would make.
Okay, and Nick Kalikas, I know you agree with me that Lawler has at least a little bit of value at the current odds. What's your take on the under 3.5 minus 135?
I would probably leave it alone. I do think it's going to go under more than likely, but I think there's way more value on Robbie Lawler than I do on the under, so I would go that route. I won't touch a total and just go under. I mean, you're getting plus, like you said, 365. You know what? It was as high as plus 450 yesterday at 5 dimes. So craziness. I mean, a lot of support coming in, heavy support, maximum bets coming in during the daytime, quite a few coming in on Hendricks, and then it got balanced back by some decent action coming in the other way at plus 450, plus 400 action. So this line's been bouncing back and forth. A lot of people seriously backing both guys.
Okay, sounds good, guys. Great preview. I think we've identified maybe a little bit of value on the under 3.5 at minus 135, and maybe a little bit on Robbie Lawler in some kind of prop inside the distance, first round knockout, something like that. Thanks so much, guys.